and wanting to encourage them, yet at the risk of thinking, oh my goodness, every kid in America wants to be a movie star or wants to be on the Disney Channel on one of those shows. So let's just take it down a notch and be super happy with the community theater that you're doing right now. Well, my next guest, I don't know if she ever struggled with it. I think she has some advice for people like me. Candy Benisi is the mother of Taryn Noah Smith. Now, Taryn was the youngest son, I believe his name was Mark, on the Tim Allen Show. Remember Tim Allen Show, Home Improvement? Oh my gosh, I love that show. I'm a child of the 80s anyway, so I loved that show. And he did a show within a show, i.e. Shakespeare, the play within the play. Tool Time, I think, was his show within the show, but the show was Home Improvement. It was about Tim Allen and his family. He had 3 boys. Absolutely loved that show. And Candy's son, Taryn, played the youngest son on that show for 7 years. She also had a daughter who got into child modeling, and now she has written a book called Stardom Happens, Nurturing Your Child in the Entertainment Business. It was released last month, and she's joining me on the show now. Candy, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I tell you, we hear these crazy stories. I'm sure you've seen the show Dance Moms and Toddlers and Tiaras. We hear these horror stories about kids in entertainment, but you seem to have bucked that trend even before it was cool and healthy, and seem to have raised 2 wonderful children despite their exposure to the entertainment business, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. I think they're pretty incredible kids. But that's basically why I wrote the book, was to give parents a heads up. I think if you go into the business prepared, it can be a whole lot better experience for you and your kids. And we went in quite naive. We really didn't know quite what was going on when we got involved. It was quite by accident, really, that he got in it. And I just wished at the time that I had known a lot more, and so I felt like I could help parents when they're in that position of what do I do, how do I get my kid into the business, and then once they're in, then what? How do I handle it? So that's why we wrote the book.
Well, Candy, how did it happen for you? How did Taryn get into acting and land the role on Home Improvement?
It's kind of a long story. I'll try to make it short, but my daughter got into modeling first. She's 7 years older, and she was really, just cute, and she loved putting clothes on and off, and everybody kept telling me, oh, you should, get her into the business. So I just kind of on a lark went into the city. We live close to San Francisco, and I took her picture in there, and they fell in love with her, and you have to be you have to be the right size, and I didn't know anything about size, but she was a size 5, and so they took her. So she did some modeling, maybe 4 or 5 jobs a year. It was never anything very big. And then Taryn is 6 months younger, and 7 years younger. And when he was 6 months old, I had him in the waiting room, and they said, you want to sign him up? I said, you have work for babies? And they said, yeah, we do, and we don't take babies, but we'll use brothers and sisters of the kids we already have. So his first job, he was 6 months old, and he was in the cover of Baby News catalog, and that's kind of how he got started. And the kids did maybe, like I say, 3, 4, 5 jobs a year, and I just put the money in the piggy bank. And then Taryn, as it went along, he really liked the acting. He got a commercial that got him into Screen Actors Guild. And so, and along that way, the same thing, I ended up working in the business. So I was working on a feature film down in Los Angeles, and the director saw Taryn. He came to visit and said, oh, you've got to get an LA agent. So we thought, well, he might get a 1 or 2 day commercial. Wouldn't that be great? And we never dreamed of a TV series. It wasn't in our head at all. But I took him to an agent in L.A., and I told him, we live in San Francisco, we can't come to everything. But she took him right away, and she called him, and the third thing she called him for was for Home Improvement. And 6 auditions later, he got, they have callbacks. They keep calling you back and calling you back. And all of a sudden, it was down to 4 kids for his part, and the next thing we know, he got it. And it was just something we weren't even thinking of at the time, but it just sort of happened, and dropped in our laps.
Don't you think the business is really different now? Because you see these parents who have these kids at like age 2 and acting lessons and singing lessons, and they're putting on makeup for these recitals, and they're in these shows, and it just seems so extreme now. I mean, it seems that you may have fell into it, and that you weren't necessarily pushing Taryn, that he had a natural ability and he was interested in it. But is the business very different now because the parents are so motivated to get their kids into showbiz?
It seems like it is. There are so many more TV shows like, American, not American Idol, they don't do little kids, but, they do younger 15-year-olds, and a lot of the talent shows and stuff, and you just see sort of younger and younger kids getting involved. And that's something that you really, we saw it a bit when we were involved. We used to call them the pot of gold parents, the ones that were pushing their kids. And you could tell the kids really, most of them weren't wanting to do it at all, and the parents were still pushing them into it. And I really discourage that. The main thing you have to realize is, is your child, do they have the right personality for this? Because they may have a lot of talent, but it takes a lot more than talent to be able to handle it. They've got to be outgoing. They have to be intelligent to keep up with the changes of the lines. They've got to be able to memorize well. They have to be able to wait patiently because there's so much waiting in the business. They have to be able to handle rejection and not get jealous or, feel upset if they don't get a part. They have to have a positive attitude and take criticism well. I mean, there's just so many things that they have to have. And if your child, like I have a wonderfully adorable, really cute grandson. I mean, he's got dimples that just look like they go straight through his cheeks. He's just absolutely adorable, and he's actually pretty talented, but he is the most sensitive little guy. I mean, if a director said, no, don't do that, do it this way, he burst into tears. So even though agents have asked for him, my daughter and I had to say no. He just wouldn't last in that business. He's just too sensitive. So you have to know your child. That's the first thing I mentioned in the book, is to really know what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with, and can the child handle all of this, because it is intense. And once you do decide that the child has got the personality and the talent, then you have to figure out, well, now what do I do? And you're doing exactly what I tell people to do, is get experience locally. Our agent used to say, bloom where you're planted, but that's the best thing, is to just go to school plays, community theater, and even college theater. Oftentimes we'll take kids for their projects that they're doing. And then from there, and once you've got some experience, then you start looking for an agent after that. So
now, I'm speaking, by the way, with Candy Benisi. She is the mother of Taryn Noah Smith, who was the youngest son on Tim Allen's Home Improvement show. Now, Candy, do you ever think, because Taryn was on the show for 7 years, right during his childhood, did he miss out? Did he not get to go to school and play sports and do other stuff that his friends did?
Well, that's what we really worked very hard to have not happen. We really wanted him to stay as normal as possible. And the show actually went 8 years. He started when he was 7, and it went all the way till he was 15. And it was originally a 7-year contract, and then they went one more year after that. And so, for him, it was life as he knew it. When the show ended, it was like, he didn't know much other than Home Improvement. And we figured this was, going to be the case, so we tried very hard to make sure that we kept him as grounded and as, down to earth as possible. We used to always let him have friends over. We had him do sports outside of, and other activities outside of the acting business, so he would meet other kids that were not in acting. We really made a point. He took fencing, he took roller hockey, he did a lot of outside activities, and we had a friend over almost all the time, for both to keep him connected with the outside world, but also just to keep the balance, because there were 2 older boys and 1 younger, and just like in the show, the younger one often gets it. So we kept another, let him have friends over whenever possible.
Sure.
And we just really worked hard. We one of the things we kept talking to him about is, you're so lucky. You're so lucky to get this. And I think by working on keeping him as normal as we could in that situation, it really helped keep him balanced and kept him grounded. It's very difficult, because they do have school on the set, and they have to do well, we did 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And on the week off, he went back to his regular school. You have to be enrolled in a normal school. And then the teachers on the set will use the work that's coming from the school to teach. They don't come up with the work. They just basically are tutoring from the work from the school. So he would have to go back to his regular school after every 3 weeks, in touch with other kids that are not in the business, and gave them a little bit of, of reality, as opposed to just constantly,
Sure.
totally encased in the entertainment world. It does.
Candy, stick with me. Stick with me through the break. I have to take a quick break. When we come back, let's find out what Candy's kids are doing now, because they both grew up in the business. So we want to find out what they're up to now and what she's up to now. If you have any questions for Candy, we will have a few minutes. 651-989-9226. I'm speaking with Candy Benisi, author of Stardom Happens, Nurturing Your Child Through the Entertainment Business. We'll be back in just a moment.
Ziggy X, I got one more problem with you, girl. Hey.
Nelson in studio. It's 10:24. I'm speaking with Candy Benisi. Candy is a stage mom. I mean, not really, not like the bad ones that you see on Toddlers and Tiaras. But her son, Taryn Noah Smith, was the youngest child in Home Improvement. You guys remember Home Improvement with Tim Allen? He used to make that crazy noise. I'm doing a bad impersonation. And Taryn was the youngest, cutest little one who, unfortunately, Candy, I mean, Taryn basically had to go through puberty on national television. I mean, he was adorable, but I feel bad for him.
Yeah, that was difficult. And it was funny because he was, the little child, the youngest, the sweet little guy that everybody picked on. And then as it went along, he got taller and taller and taller, and pretty soon he was almost he ended up taller than Tim Allen. But so they had to change the plot a bit because it didn't work anymore to have the older kids trying to teach him since he was so big.
Cutie.
Yeah.
We always think of these stage kids, or we always think of these child actors. You hear these crazy stories about them getting into drugs or losing all their money, and like terrible things happening to them. I know that's not the case with Taryn and your other daughter, who was a child model. Give us an update on what your kids are doing now.
Well, actually, Taryn did have a little bit of problem after the show was over. It was actually a year after, not during the show, but a year later. And he did run into some people that, are kind of out there looking for kids. I talk a little bit about in the book about them. I call them the sharks, but they do prey on these kids because they know the kids are very vulnerable, and it's difficult. Then we had that problem, but luckily he came out of it very quickly and apologized.
Well, tell us a little bit about it, Candy. Was it drugs? Did they know that he had money? And
no, it was money. It was particularly people who. The problem is that these kids have a big trust fund, and people know that, and so the money comes due at 18, which is too bad. It should come due at 21. The original law, the Coogan law, was it would come due at the age of maturation, or age of adult, which at that time was 21. Well, they've changed that, and now it comes due at 18. So these sharks, these people know that, and they will come around at 16. And 16 is a very, very vulnerable age, particularly the kids who've been on the set all along. And I used to say to my mom, I said, I'm really worried about Taryn. He's not streetwise. And she said, honey, he's not even playground-wise. Because they're not. They have most of their time there on the set. So they're very vulnerable at that age, and this is why so many of them have problems, because adults will come in knowing that they can just manipulate these kids very easily, and knowing that big trust fund is sitting there waiting when they're 18. So that's what we ran into, and luckily it passed a few years, and pretty soon as he grew up and got close, when he was 19, he realized, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Okay,
but
good.
It took a while, and he's so sweet, and he's got this gigantic heart, and he's been back with our family since he was 19, and been with us the whole time. What he just did, he just came away from 6 months in the Philippines with an organization called Communitaire, and they go to disaster relief. They help people who have been in very bad situations. They started in Haiti, and then they went to the Philippines, where the people from Tacloban had experienced the largest typhoon ever recorded, and it just leveled the whole city of Tacloban. It even took a freighter and threw it into the middle of the city. So they build these big warehouses, and they get all these tools donated from big companies, and then they train the people how to use the tools and then lend them out like a tool library so people can rebuild their homes and their boats and, get their life back. And so he just spent 6 months there, and he's now setting up, actually they're going to go to Nepal in July, and he's going to be going out to do this, basically the same type of thing in Nepal. So I'm very proud of him, and I'm really excited that he's got this kind of drive that he wants to do it. He loves building things with his hands, so he makes installation art for various festivals, and has been doing that for a long time too. And went on one tour where he went all over Europe to all these different festivals building things. But anyway, that's what he's doing now, and I'm very proud of him. And my daughter, Taryn quit acting when he was 15, when the show was over.
And he didn't want to continue acting?
No.
That wasn't an interest of his anymore?
No, he had done it, his whole life from 7 to 15, and then, he just really wanted to do other things. He said, that was fun, but now I want to try something else. So,
I see.
And my daughter was an international model. At 15, she went to Japan and modeled there. I went with her, and she modeled for 3 months in Japan, and they wanted her to stay longer. And this was during school. It started in August and went into October, November, and they wanted her to stay longer. And she's so funny. She was great. She said, "Are you kidding? I can't do that. I want to go to UC Berkeley. I've got to go back and take my SAT test and fill my college applications out." So anyway, she got her dream. She went to UC Berkeley, majored in science, and became a science writer. She writes for freelance for Wired magazine and New Scientist, and she now has 2 children. She's 38 years old now and has 2 children, and I'm Grammy to them, and she's just doing great. They both ended up just amazingly well. I'm so pleased with
So
both
it can be done. They can live the dream. They can get on a show. They can have a little acting experience, but it doesn't necessarily have to be their downfall. I'm glad to hear that, Candy.
Right. As long
Wonderful.
as you go in prepared, it really does help, because you can make it a positive experience and be aware of the things. I mean, it's called the entertainment business for a reason. It is a business, and you have to go in savvy and know that what to expect. And that's why I wrote the book. And Taryn makes comments all through the book, so he's part of the book as well.
Interesting stuff, and a sobering and very honest look at the entertainment business, which isn't all toddlers and tiaras and dance moms. So it's called it's not, and it's a lot of hard work, honestly, for these kids. They do sacrifice a lot, and so do the parents as well.
Exactly.
The book is called Stardom Happens, Nurturing Your Child in the Entertainment Business by Candy Benisi. Candy, thank you so much for your time on the show tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. Have a great night. Enjoy your time.
Okay, you too. Bye.
You got it. Candy is writing and living on a sailboat with her husband and enjoying her time, writing books and telling her memoirs. So it's a good life. She raised 2 good kids, science writer and someone who installs art and feeds the world. Tikkun Olam, he heals the world, going to disaster-ridden areas and helps out building stuff with his hands. So it can be done. It can be done. It is 10:32.